welcome Ken Capell back to the show. He's been a guest before, but I want to bring him back on to talk more in the scope of our Super Collector series, because Ken is a super collector of Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's also got a pretty cool Young Guns collection, and that's what I want to talk about today. So Ken, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, I'm glad we got a chance to connect again here in that mindset of the Super Collector series, because we talked before about your overall collection. We talked about your hobby background and those types of things. But as I'm continuing the Super Collector series in 2023, I wanted to dig in a little bit more about your hockey related super collections. And so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to bring you back and dig in a little bit on those things. Maybe we can start just a little bit with the Columbus Blue Jackets super collection. Tell me a little bit about the start of that and kind of why that is one of your primary hockey card focuses.
Well, that is a great question. So back in 1998, Columbus was awarded the franchise that became the Blue Jackets, and my son at that time was 4 years old. And, I have been a hockey collector and a hockey fan dating back to the early 80s, 1980s, with the New York Islanders, and then Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, had a great hockey program too. So I was, I was a fan, but I was living in Ohio now, no longer in New York. And I had my kids, and just the thought of getting in when a team starts and being a fan from day one, and then having my 4-year-old be there with me at the time. So fast forward to October 2000, and when the first game in the history of the Blue Jackets, and we were there opening night, the two of us. And I told him, I said, in 98, when we got awarded the franchise, I said, Austin, we are going to be there during the first game of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And at 4 years old, he was like, whatever, Dad, that's fine. So it started then with the love of just my team. This is my team from the ground floor. And here it is now, 2023, and we have been to, together, him and I, every single opening night that they've had. So take out, the year with the COVID, when they laid it, and then the strike year, or the lockout season. But we have a continuous streak going now of every night, the two of us. And it's just been something that him and I have shared since he was 4 years old, and now he's 28. So it's just been a great thing that we have that in common. And during games, we text each other. And this year's a little frustrating this year a little bit, but so that's kind of where it started. And I was a very big hockey collector back, starting back in there. And I just said, this is good. This is a way for me to kind of keep my passion for the team, and all the players come in and out of the franchise, and the ups and the downs, and be able to immortalize it on cardboard. So it's something that I just love to do. And I just love to just continuously see how the team has progressed, how the the players that they drafted when they were 17, 18, 19 years old, how they've developed, and how they've swung and missed a couple of times, and how they've hit home runs other times, and watched the team go through their ups and downs, and the first playoff appearance, and the first playoff win, and all those things, by the way, I've been at. The first playoff win, the first playoff appearance. So just to be able to follow that, and then be able to look back, and I use the cards in that way to be able to look back in the excitement, and then get into the feel of the game with the autograph cards and the game-worn jerseys, and everything that's in there that just kind of brings me back to that moment. And I can go back and say, hey, that game I was there, or this game that they talk about, I was there, or even funny, look at the pictures of some of the cards and look for myself or my son in there. And, it's brought us a lot of time and a lot of get together that I really like. And my daughter and I, we have our own thing, but my son and I, that's our thing, is the Blue Jackets. So being able to collect them all these years, he never got into the collecting part of it. He's more of a Pokemon guy. So this is something that I do and it brings me, it helps me relax. And when I'm watching the games, I can sort through cards and just really enjoy it. And it gives me a manageable goal to set, with the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, that's a good question, or a good maybe focus point is, the Blue Jackets do have somewhat of a limited tenure, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's a pretty broad range of potential cards to go after that are Blue
Mhm.
Jackets cards. So when you think about your Blue Jackets collection, are you focusing mainly on the Upper Deck flagship products, or are you expanding that to the other product lines like Trilogy and Ice and those types of things, or even down to the AHL projects or the AHL products for the Blue Jackets affiliates? Like how far reaching or how wide does that Blue Jackets product or focus go?
It starts off narrow and then continues to widen out as you go. So, like the biggest thing that I do is back in the early days of the franchise, I read an interview that an inaugural season Blue Jacket Kevin Dineen gave. And Kevin went on, had a great career with the Flyers and the Whalers and Carolina. He ended his career as a Blue Jacket. And he gave an interview one time that said, one of the things that he collects, and this was in a Beckett magazine, is he collects a player's card, a trading card of every single person that he ever played with. So every one of his teammates he had a card of. And I said, that's pretty neat. Be able to look back on that. And I said, and I'm looking at the Blue Jackets in their inaugural season, I said, this is doable for me. This is something that I could do. So my goal was then, there's every single person that's ever played a game, an NHL game with the Columbus Blue Jackets, to get a card of, to get one trading card of. It doesn't have to necessarily be a rookie. Those are nice, and those are a lot of what they are. But to actually go through and find one card of everything. Thank goodness for Hockey Database, the Hockey DB, because I have a filter in there and it lets me look and see. So in looking at it recently, there's been 321 players to ever put on the jersey and play a game. That's not including there's 8 goalies that have suited up, or 7 goalies that have suited up and sat on the bench but never got into a game, and then 1 goalie it's a long funny story that was signed by the team but because of the lockout never played for them. So I started collecting that, and it just goes, and so wherever I can find them, if it's Upper Deck, if it's Trilogy, if it's MVP, I try to get them in the Blue Jackets Union Blue, as we call it. So with that jersey, but if I have to go to the minor, the AHL cards, and find them there, I'll do that. It's been challenging. There's actually been 2 players that have played 1 game apiece in their history and never had an NHL licensed card. So in that case, I found something from the 90s called 7th Inning Sketch or something like that, and found one of the guys in there, and the other one I found a regional college hockey set.
Sure.
That he was in, to get him into the set. But and I try to update them. So if I originally get them first if they're in another team's jersey, but then when the card comes out with them in the Blue Jackets jersey, then I'll substitute that in, keep going. A lot of those tend to be rookie cards because with all those players through the years, a lot of them have played a couple of games here and there and then went somewhere else and maybe out of the league or whatever. So I have a lot of Victory back in the day. I have a lot of, Trilogy MVP, but the most of them are, upper deck products, because that's the nice thing. In 2000, that was there. There wasn't really much Tops. Or Fleer at that point because those were so far, in the rearview mirror. But guys like inaugural season jackets, it started out guys just in their other jerseys, and then as they got cards, I would add them to the collection. So it's going strong right now. Going into this season, out of the 321 that have played, there's 4 guys that are missing, and they are all rookies that played this season in the 22-23 season, which so I'm anxiously awaiting Upper Deck Series 2 to come out, or extended series, because they'll have them in there. Last year, I think there was 8 guys that I had to wait until Series 2 and extended series came out to finish off the list. Some of them are really easy. I mean, you look back, Rick Nash, and nowadays like Kent Johnson, Cole Sillinger, they're easy to find cards.
Yep.
But when you're starting to look for a goaltender named Tarasov that at this point has like one card as Upper Deck Series 2 Young Gun, they're easy to find, but you have to really know where to look and what to get. So I keep that going. And then that kind of went into, now that's kind of in maintenance mode. Yep. Because I'm caught up. Now I just got to get the new players, like, when they signed Johnny Gaudreau during the off season. So I go through my common boxes, which I have monster boxes filled with Upper Deck commons because I collect so much of Upper Deck. I look, there he is, so I pull him out, throw him into the collection, but he's kind of in that waiting game until the card comes out where he's not in a Flames jersey, where he's in a Blue Jacket jersey, and then replace it with that. So that's the collection that is fun for me because it gets me to look back and say, wow, look at all these players over the course of the 23 years now, that there were 22 years that they've been in existence, and everybody that's played. And even to the point, some of those, like I said, those goalies that have dressed but never played, it's like when you look through those, it's kind of like, oh, that's pretty neat too. That there's actually cards of them in Blue Jacket uniforms, even though they never played a game, got into an actual game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's really cool. And especially because the way that you've crafted it, it's manageable, right? Like you're looking for your goal is one card of each of those players, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, I want every card that they've had across all product lines and everything else. It's, I want one card of every player that's played for the Blue Jackets. That's a pretty cool goal. And I really like how you've kind of contained that. So that's really cool. Yeah. One of the other collection focuses I know you have is going after the young guns every year. Tell me a little bit about that collection, the young guns collection.
Well, it started up again in the 2000s, early 2000s. I had the two young kids, and I was getting into the Blue Jackets, and my best friend Jim and I we've been friends since high school, and he got me back into the hobby back in the 90s. And, and he was collecting and I was collecting. Well, he was collecting SP Authentic Future Watches. And that was not, I wanted to do that, but I just didn't have the available funds at that point in my life to go after the Future Watches. So I kept looking at the young guns, and especially in the early 2000s, and I thought they were really neat cards, and they weren't flooded in the market where, they're short prints like today, so many every box, but it's a manageable thing. So in the beginning, I just started with the Blue Jackets. And then once I got the Blue Jacket rookies from there, then I was like, oh, who else is really good? And I wasn't getting everybody, like one of these cards right here, I'll show you, since, Marc-Andre Fleury. Sure. He's a pretty good player. So I picked him up one day, just, kind of on the side. And I had a whole bunch of young guns from every year, and they were all the guys that were stars. And I got in early before the value would go way up on them and it would become more difficult. And then I started realizing one day, I said, I'm missing guys, because guys that took a long time to kind of go. Andre Vasilevsky is an example. His card exploded overnight after it was out for a couple of years. Yeah. And I missed them totally. So I had to go in and pay more than what, I wanted to with that. So, and I said, what would be the harm of going back? I've already got the stars through most of the years. What would be the harm of going back and now starting to finish some of my favorite sets? So it's funny, in, the big set, of course, that everybody talks about is the 2005, 2006 set. That was the one that kind of got me started. And you can see here, I've got my 9.5 graded Sidney Crosby. Yep. And then my ungraded Alex Ovechkin. Okay. And which I'm going to get graded one of these days. I just, other priorities. And I said, that was a neat set. The first one. So I said, I have all the big guys. I have those two. I have Corey Perry, John Van Beesbrook, Duncan Keith, all the guys that were in there. And they're readily available. So I said, let's just collect the set. So I collected the set. I had all the young guns in the set. And then I said, that was fun. That's neat. And I went over and I said, what's another set to collect? And then I collected that set. And before I knew it, I had a bunch of years just because I had the stars. So then I put out there and I said, okay, let's start looking at this. And, you know, Young Guns started back in 1990 as a insert with the regular set. And it stayed that way as insert or even a mail-in set, and even years where it wasn't even available. And I had all those from my base sets when I collected in the 90s. So I just started with collecting the Young Guns. Another reason why I did it, which I'll get into this in a second, is the #1 draft picks. Sure. So that was another collection that I kind of do. But because I had all these bigger cards, I just started going back and getting them. And with help from the National, with help from the Toronto Sports Card Expo, which I go to every year now, and ComC was a big help with that, being able to find those cards, that the commons. Yep. And it took me, I'd say about 4 years of trying. And I got to a point where the only thing I was missing was the 2002, 2003 short prints. Okay. For some reason, in 02, 03, there was about 12 or 13, I forget the number of cards, that were considered one per box. Okay. You only got one of these per box. And Rick Nash and Henrik Zetterberg were the two big guys in that set. So for a long time, those were the ones I was missing. But over the course of the years, I was able to pick them all, pick them up as I went. I had the Nash because he old baseball cards that I didn't need anymore or really desire or want. And I said, I'm getting a Zetterberg. That's it. I'm finding a Zetterberg. And the last day I was there, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the last day, about an hour before the show, I found a Zetterberg. Nice. And I picked them up and brought them home. And I said, now that completed the set. So the whole run of every Young Guns rookie card, which I have almost 2,300 different Young Gun cards in my collection at this point. There are some subsets. There's like Young Gun retros or Young Gun flashbacks. I'm not really as much interested in those. I'm interested in the Young Gun rookie cards of the players. So yeah, going back from 1990, 91 up and through, I just finished about 2 weeks ago. I got my last card for the 22-23 Series 1. So it's all updated. So now I'm just kind of sitting patiently, waiting for Series 2, and now waiting for Extended after that to add to it and just keep going. So another thing where it was just something that was fun to kind of do and see the players, and then it kind of went into, well, this set's a really neat set. Let me collect that one. And then, that one. And then I said, that set's a neat set. I like the design on that set. Let me do that one. And before you knew it, I was down to 2 or 3 years where I was missing a couple of years. And then, like I said, all of those other outlets let me find those. So that's my biggest one. And behind me, you can see I got over the shoulder, like these boxes, I got 3 monster boxes filled with Young Guns. That's all that's in there.
So you talked about your Blue Jackets collection, and it's now in maintenance mode, you said, right? Mm-hmm. You talked about your Young Guns collection, and you've got all of the historical Young Guns, and it's now kind of in maintenance mode. And you just mentioned finishing off the 22-23 Series 1 Young Guns. So that begs the question of, when you've got some of these primary focuses in maintenance mode, and you're such a big Upper Deck and you're such a big hockey fan, how does buying new wax, whether that's MVP, whether that's O-Pee-Chee, whether that's the flagship Series 1, Series 2, and Extended Series, how does buying some new wax fit into kind of your overall enjoyment of the hobby, but also helping accomplish some of that goal of continuing to fill those new potential Blue Jackets players, the new Young Guns that come in? How does that new wax fit into your overall goals? How much of a role does that play in filling these new spots that are coming in compared to buying on the secondary market on ComC or eBay or Sportlots or some of those other platforms?
Yeah. Well, what I do is I buy when the product comes out. I buy a few boxes of every product, and sometimes I'll get a little more, depending on the rookie class. And and what I'll do is because the Blue Jackets, the canvas collection, they have the canvas cards. So when that started, I really liked those cards. So I said that's another part of the collection. So I've collected every canvas Blue Jacket that's ever been made, and I think there's up to 99 of those now, including all the young guns in there. So I get those, and basically what I use the wax for is get the collection started, pull the upper deck Blue Jackets base cards out, because I have a collection of every single upper deck set that they've ever made of the Blue Jackets. So each year, that's another part of it. And then I put the players that I need off to the side, for whatever collection, the young guns. And then I take everything else and I kind of just put it into the to the pile, and as from you kind of working on your project and using other those means, what you've got, your duplicates and stuff, your extra to help pay for moving forward. Yep. To self-sustain my collection. So I use that a lot. So if I pull something really good, like an exclusive card, or a Young Guns canvas, like I pulled back a couple years ago, a Mitch Marner Young Guns canvas card. Well, it's not something that I'm going to collect, but it's something that I will use as trade, or to somebody that wants it, to be able to get more. And then I have all my base. The other thing I collect is a base set from every Upper Deck product. Sure. Every Upper Deck's flagship product, I should say. So I got the base sets behind me going back to 1990, 91. It's just to go through that, because that's a nice way to look at each year and how it progresses. But then I have all the extras, and I'm all about giving back to the community. So I have a whole big box of commons behind me that I put up. Anybody needs cards from that Series 1 set, let me know, and I'll ship them out to you. I'll help you fill lists. I bring some of those over to, I work part-time in a hockey rink here in town. Hopefully my goal is to one day drive the Zamboni, but that's something that's a bucket list item, and it's getting closer. But I bring them there, and for the kids, to grab the cards and do that. So, because I love base cards, and the one thing I can't stand is when they head to the shredder. Yeah. It's like, so I would much rather give them to kids or give them to a children's hospital. I bring them up to Toronto with me and usually drop them off at somebody that brings them over, gets them to the children's hospital, whatever it is. So, but that kind of helps me give back a little bit, but also use whatever I get. And if I pick up another box of this or a box of that, or if I go through, dollar boxes and I find really good deals in the dollar box, I'll pick them up, even if I don't need them. Just to use to further the collection another way. Like with the, for the base sets or the, the Young Guns. And I try to get more than one of everybody as I can. Just because if they wind up hitting it big, I've got something that I really like. So there's a lot of ones in there, especially the last 5-6 years, where there's many duplicates in there too. Working on and not enough for another set, but at least for another, just to have. And then that way, if anybody is ever short one, they say, hey, do you have this guy? I can be like, yeah, I've got him. Let's figure something out. And there's always a Blue Jacket out there that somebody has. They're like, hey, I know you're a Blue Jacket fan. If you have an extra Young Gun of this guy, would you mind trading it? And I'm like, you just show me your Blue Jackets. I'll figure something out. One of those things.
What I love about what we've talked about so far is that you've shared a collecting perspective, and you've shared some collecting focuses that, while seem very, very broad, right? Like every Blue Jacket that's ever suited up, every Young Gun that's existed since 1990 when they first started, and at the same time feels like it's somewhat focused and manageable and attainable. And I think that is a very hard thing to do for many super collectors, right? Sometimes people jump into this mindset of super collecting a goal and super collecting a certain focus, but it seems overwhelming when they jump into it, right? And sometimes they seem like they'll never be able to attain it. But you hit on something that seems very broad, but at the same time, very focused. And I think that is a pretty cool thing that maybe some people can pick up on, of how do I have some variety in my collection, but at the same time, still make that collection attainable. So congratulations on that, because I think that is really cool. And so, I want to, thanks again for coming on today and kind of focusing in on that. I'd love to be able to highlight all of these different collections. If somebody has some Blue Jackets cards that they think you might be interested in, or they want to follow along with your journey, or maybe they want to connect with you to help fill in some of those sets like you were just talking about, where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you at?
The big thing is on Twitter. My handle is CBJ for life. So Columbus Blue Jackets for life 61. And, that's where a lot of the stuff on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook. So I check out Marketplace all the time, and I'm in a bunch of collectors groups on there. But I don't have an individual website or anything at this point. Working on getting that, but no, Twitter and Facebook are the two ways to get with me.
Very cool. Well, Ken, thanks for coming on again today. I really appreciate it. I hope people are able to grab on to some of the insights that you shared and help them maybe realize a way that they can focus in on a super collection of their own that they maybe not have thought about before. So thanks again, Ken.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Love what you do.